You just got wrecked.
He needs some milk.
What's going on, guys? It's K-Dub here with another episode of CryptoZombie. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a great day today. Yes, my friends, I am back again in the studio. What a crazy week it has been for Bitcoin. In fact, if we actually have a look right here at what is happening for the weekly candle, we had this crazy opening around $37,700. Bitcoin pumped all the way up to $45,000, almost completely erasing all of the gains for Bitcoin this week. And there is this sort of on-running joke on this channel. Every time I take a break, there's always some crazy price action. Well, it never disappoints when K-Dub is away from the studio. However, the thing that is bothering most people right now is the fact that Bitcoin did hit resistance. We did pull back. We are below that $42,000 level that Bitcoin really needs to get above. We've also seen stocks having a little bit of a red close on Friday. We are back again at critical support, and this is during a time that gold is actually pumping. So this has a lot of Bitcoiners and investors worried during this situation with Russia and Ukraine. We saw Bitcoin pump, tried to get above resistance, got a bit of a fake out. We did pull back and gold is pumping. So what does this mean, especially if the situation in Russia and Ukraine does in fact continue to escalate? Well, having a look at the charts, you may be feeling a little bit down on Bitcoin, but what I want to go over today specifically is something that has happened for the first time ever for Bitcoin on chain. So we're going to be looking at some on-chain data that could be giving us clues as to what is actually happening in the background right now. And also, there was a massive, massive victory for Bitcoin that you may not even be aware of that is happening right now in the US, and also some shocking data that even kind of caught me off guard. You guys might want to stick around to hear this. I did find this to be very, very interesting. And finally, I do have one little bit of warning, or I should say caution, for Ethereum holders. Now, nothing too crazy, but you might want to stick around for this. It could concern you, specifically if you do, mostly a lot of trading on decentralized exchanges. So we're going to go into all that today. We're going to talk about what this means for Bitcoin, what is happening right now in the charts. Are we totally losing structure? Is it time to get bearish? We're going to go over the short-term Bitcoin price actions as well as the long-term outlook for Bitcoin, and also go over some of those key points that I mentioned just before. So thank you again for coming back to the channel. If this is your first time, definitely get subscribed. We are going to be going hard every single day. We're back.
I was like, Dad, we're going hard these days.
Let's go. Let's dive in and have a look at Bitcoin. Now, we were talking about, and today I'm actually going to start on the lower time frames for a difference. Usually we start on the higher time frames, but as we had pointed out, we were putting in this descending broadening wedge. We did have a breakout, and then we were putting in more of a very extreme descending broadening wedge. Almost looks like a right, not really a right angle, but I mean it looks a lot more extreme than the previous one. We did have that breakout, but as you guys can see, we were in fact rejected at this resistance. So this does have a lot of people worried, obviously during a time where gold is pumping. It is the weekend. Take it with a grain of salt. You guys know how I feel about weekend moves. You can see right here, though, interestingly enough, Bitcoin was putting in this downward sloping resistance. We did get, way above it. We hit this resistance here, but you can see that we have sort of tested this as support. So could this just have been a short-term corrective move for Bitcoin, and we are looking to continue to go upwards? Well, as I've been saying on this channel, as long as we are continuing to put in those higher lows on the macro, this is the daily right here. Yes, we have fallen out of the blue zone, but you can see that we have had this support right here, and it looks like we could be heading down to that again, which if you guys watch my previous video, the only video actually that I put out last week, I said that it wouldn't be out of the cards to actually see Bitcoin come back down to the $37,000, $38,000 level. So this really shouldn't be that surprising of a move for Bitcoin. This is in fact the type of moves that Bitcoin does put in. And if you look at what we're doing right here, essentially, Bitcoin is in fact forming an ascending triangle, which we do know is bullish for Bitcoin, right? So you just have to let time play out. In fact, the chart that I showed you, this was over on the 3-day. you can sort of assess this situation right here as a bit of a bull trap, right? But if you just take the bottom and you follow this right here, guys, you can see that we have had support and support again. And I was talking about putting in these W patterns. And even though, yes, we did technically come down from resistance, if we were to bottom out here, we would still be putting in that W pattern for Bitcoin. So the overall structure is not broken. And, just to get back to gold, just because I understand people are talking about gold, pumping. I mean, gold got down to a low down here around 1676, right? And if we actually take that from the bottom, right, to the top of where gold is right now, gold is up 17% since essentially, all the way back here in March of 2021. So gold, March of 2021, gold is up 17%. Peter Schiff is out there celebrating in the streets, as usual, tweeting on Twitter saying that, crypto's going to zero. Well, 17%. This is essentially the move that we saw for Bitcoin, in just 2 days. So Bitcoin is a lot more volatile than gold, obviously, but we have to pay attention to the structure of Bitcoin. We have to pay attention to the fact that we still are, in fact, not only putting in higher lows, but we're also putting in higher highs. Now, there is one theory that some people are a little bit worried about, what if this is a head and then this is the shoulders? And what if Bitcoin does come all the way back up to here and then we just put in a giant head and shoulders pattern? Well, we'll have to obviously assess that when we get to that point. We're not there yet, but either way, that would still put Bitcoin at a target minimally, right? If you do believe that this is the ultimate macro bearish chart for Bitcoin, then we should still see around $63,000 to $64,000 Bitcoin by the end of this year, right? But like Matthew Hyland had pointed out, if we actually look at the monthly RSI for Bitcoin, you can see that it's forming a giant descending or falling wedge, and falling wedge patterns are inherently bullish. Now, you might be saying, well, why does this matter? Well, it matters because it's on the monthly. This has been in a falling wedge pattern for over 1 year. So when you build these structures over, if you do them over the 4-hour chart, or the 12-hour chart, whatever, not too significant. But when you're talking about looking at the monthly chart and seeing something that's been happening for Bitcoin for over a year, it's definitely hard to ignore the signs. And you can see right here that, granted, yes, we have been having a red month so far. Don't forget that green monthly candle pump that we had happened at the very, very end of February. Literally on the last day, we got the pump. So we still have 3 full weeks left to March to really see how this plays out. It hasn't been very common to see more than 3 red candles for Bitcoin really historically. And you can see that generally after that, we do have a bit of an uptrend. So I still do maintain bullishness for this month. We have 3 weeks left. Don't let the first week freak you out. It's definitely been a little bit crazy, but this is just how Bitcoin acts. And if you've been in the space, for more than a year or so, you're probably starting to get accustomed to these crazy Bitcoin swings. Very, very volatile. But like Rick has pointed out, and he was using this Apex MFI down here, if you actually look at this moving average, there starts to be sort of a pattern that plays out. And if you look at what was happening essentially back here in June of 2019, you can actually see that once we crossed above it, we did in fact have this 280-day sort of consolidation period, which then we did in fact have a bearish cross in the middle. But once we came back up again, coming back up to here, you could see, as he points out, Bitcoin did in fact have a massive, massive rally to the upside. And if we look at the similarities like we had back here, there's something happening again where we did have that peak, right? We crossed over bearish, we came back down, we had that 280-day period. We then had the bounce, which was pretty crazy if you consider maybe if it's just a coincidence, right? Could just be a coincidence. But as you can see right now, he's talking about this bullish cross right here, and we're looking for 3 days that we need for confirmation. Now, we're currently on the 2nd day. So we will have to see what happens tomorrow, Sunday, if this does confirm. But I have a hunch that if we just have a look at what is going on with the traditional stocks right here, I wouldn't be surprised to see Monday actually close as a green day for stocks and potentially even a green day for Bitcoin. And, if we actually have a look at what Mike McGlone was saying, he's the senior analyst at Bloomberg. He was talking about Bitcoin possibly revisiting 30,000. Now, we had talked about this potential of, having this giant M-shaped pattern, which we had seen before in traditional stocks, and it's still not off the cards just yet. But as I've been saying, this is still historically a bullish structure structure for Bitcoin. The only difference is between what Bitcoin has been doing recently and versus what Bitcoin has done in the past is it's usually done these moves a lot faster. We've usually seen something that would take, a few months to happen now was happening in a few weeks years ago. Well, Bitcoin is now becoming a more popular vehicle for investment. There's more money in it. We're having institutions get involved, family offices get involved, right? Countries getting involved. So the more that you have in the space, the harder it is to really move the prices, right? The higher the price goes, the harder the price is, arguably, to move the price, just because you need more money coming into essentially the markets to move the prices, right? So if we have a look at what he says, yes, we could revisit 30,000. Bitcoin faces deflationary forces after 2021 excess, but the crypto shows divergent strength with 2020 losses less than half those for the Nasdaq 100. Bitcoin may be maturing towards global digital collateral. In fact, February 24th, following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which did result in a brief dip for Bitcoin, you had Mike McGlone. He noted that even though there are negative risks present, the drop provided a good opportunity for buying in his opinion. And we also had shown a lot of different Bitcoin indicators and charts that had shown that this was essentially maybe not the perfect buy zone, but a pretty damn good buy zone if you ask me. He said, I don't think Bitcoin gets below 30,000. It's holding good resistance around 40. I think this is ultimately going to be a very good buying opportunity for Bitcoin for longer term traders. It's going to be looked back upon in history as a defining moment. So you kind of have to zoom out sometimes, right? It's very hard on the daily. It's been a crazy year for Bitcoin, mostly sideways action, but the key takeaway is that higher low and higher high structure. So ultimately, even though it's not moving as fast as most of us would like in the space, because people in crypto have, attention spans of goldfish, right? Like if my coin doesn't 10x tomorrow, well, you have to understand that Bitcoin is evolving. It is maturing. And actually over on my Twitter, I said that I believe in the next 10 years, Bitcoin is going to become a risk-off asset, right? Now, who is buying? Well, interestingly enough, if we have a look at some on-chain data, you can see that retail accumulation is on the rise. So we're seeing a lot of smaller wallets buying Bitcoin. Now, you might say, oh, well, retail's buying, and retail, they're the fools, so that means that they're wrong, which means price is going to go down. You could say that, I suppose, if you want to counter trade what's happening right now. But what you are seeing is addresses containing zero point 0.1 Bitcoin or more actually hitting an all-time high. So as of yesterday, there were around 3.4 million accounts showing this increase in Bitcoin in the wallet. Now, if you think that that's a little bit too small of the fish, well, we also have data right here showing that addresses that hold 1 Bitcoin or more have actually increased to a 10-month high, showing that there's about 820,000 addresses holding 1 Bitcoin or more. So there is accumulation happening. We've seen the whales accumulating, and now we're starting to see some of the smaller fish, the sharks, maybe the dolphins, the guppies, accumulating as well, showing that Bitcoin is getting more widely distributed. It's really truly becoming the people's money, right? Alex Mashinsky, you guys may know him. He's over at Celsius. He actually spoke about the situation, and he said, I think for the Russia-Ukraine conflict, this is the bottom. We have strong support at $30,000 Bitcoin. And I understand, everyone's like, well, if everybody thinks 30,000 is strong support, then we have to break it, right? You could say that, but then again, once again, you're counter trading opinion. And although, yes, most traders tend to be wrong on the daily, you do have to admit that there is a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy when it comes to these charts, right? He says all the people that were on leverage, they got flushed out. All the traders who wanted to get out, considering the bad news, they already sold. Crypto does not have as much leverage as people think. When those people sell, there are only buyers left, and that is what will cause the prices to go higher. But speaking on the Russian-Ukraine conflict, are they actually buying? Is it bullish for Bitcoin? Is it bearish for Bitcoin, considering gold has been pumping? Some people may not be feeling that way, but we do have legendary investor Bill Miller, who, by the way, has approximately half of his net worth currently in Bitcoin, or at least his investment worth. Not sure which one it is. Long story short, watch this clip from what he said from CNBC, and he actually says that it could potentially be bullish for Bitcoin.
What do you think this moment says or speaks to in terms of the future of crypto and what you think the price and Bitcoin should be?
Great. It's a great question, Andrew. I think that basically, if you look at Russia right now, Russia has 16% of their $640 billion of reserves in dollars. They have 32% in euros. So they have almost 50% of their reserves in currencies that are controlled by people who want to do them harm. Now, I think we should do them harm. But the point is, from Russia's point of view, that's not a great position to be in. They have 22% in gold, and that's the only part of their reserves which other countries can't control. So I think if you're a country out there that is a non-reserve currency, there's about 100 of them, you might think about saying, you know what, maybe we should have something else out there that other countries cannot harm us with, and that is impervious to inflation or to being manufactured in greater quantities. And so I think it's very bullish for Bitcoin particularly. The rest of crypto is different. I think Bitcoin is unique, and the rest of crypto should be considered as a sort of venture investments, because they're all trying to solve other problems.
So have they been buying, or is this just a narrative that stupid Bitcoiners are pushing, like, oh, Bitcoin will save the world, right? Well, Bitcoin may not be the answer to everything specifically. Certainly does help when you're talking about this tyrannical monetary policies, and sanctions aren't fun either, right? According to a report by Frank Shapiro from The Block that was published on March 1st, he says that Russian investors are becoming increasingly active on exchanges. They can see this with the data. Since Russia's invaded Ukraine, the average volume of the ruble, which we know is not doing quite well today, has in fact increased on crypto exchange Binance to about $35.8 million per day compared to about 11 million per day previously. So we are seeing ruble to crypto pairs trading increasing over 3x since this situation has happened. They also go on to say exchanges that allow onboarding of ruble pairs will see a huge demand, given that it is almost the only way for many to get out of the ruble. And interestingly enough, we had David Carlis over, he's at, where's this at? Elliptic. He urges that Russia's next move in avoiding sanctions could be investing in Bitcoin mining. He says it wouldn't be a stretch for the Russian government or certain sanctioned entities to look to mining as a way to access Bitcoin. They could be translated to goods and services or just hard cash. So you might be saying to yourself, well, if they do in fact, let's just say hypothetically, we don't know if they're going to do this. We do know that Putin has sort of come out and said, no, he wants to embrace the mining. But you can see right here, according to Cambridge University Center for Alternative Finance, Russia follows USA and Kazakhstan in Bitcoin mining. Now, this actually shocked me to find out. If you actually look at this heat map for global Bitcoin mining, you're actually noticing the majority of it being in the US. Actually, US sitting at about 35.4%, with Russia sitting down at around 11. This is very interesting data. So people that are concerned about Bitcoin and how it could be affected by this crisis, well, considering that we have seen US investors buying up Bitcoin recently, and now we're seeing Bitcoin heat map over here for mining have about a 34% dominance, it would not really be very smart for the US to look to ban or stifle the innovation of Bitcoin, considering the fact that ever since China got rid of it, they are starting, in fact, to get ahead of the curve. So it does look like there is a beautiful narrative building in the background for Bitcoin right now. In fact, you have Skybridge Capital founder Anthony Scaramucci, who, by the way, is a former White House director of communications, saying that he could see Bitcoin hitting 100,000 by the end of 2024. Now, that seems like a very low ball prediction. You know, a lot of people were calling for 100K by the end of last year, and he says that he doesn't really believe that Bitcoin is the be-all, end-all to everything, but he is quite bullish on it nevertheless. In fact, they just recently announced the Skybridge launch of the Skybridge Bitcoin Fund LP, which is going to provide mass affluent investors with an institutional grade vehicle to gain exposure to Bitcoin. Additionally, on behalf of its flagship fund, Skybridge initiated a position valued at around $310 million at the time of this article in funds investing in Bitcoin during November and December of 2020. And Anthony Scaramucci himself mentioned that he had invested in Bitcoin. He says, for me, I have over $1 billion in Bitcoin now. I started accumulating that position last year. I think that this manifests itself into a gigantic asset class. This is equivalent to me to digital gold. Now, if he started investing in Bitcoin last year, we know that Bitcoin was bouncing between that $30,000 and $70,000 range. So that means that he bought somewhere between 30 and 70,000, and he's still feeling bullish about it. So this is another reason why it's not very likely that we see Bitcoin fall. I mean, not saying it couldn't happen quick, but very unlikely that Bitcoin does in fact fall below that $30,000 level. We still could see 28, 29, something like that. But between, Michael Saylor, Tesla, Anthony Scaramucci, Bill Miller, and all these other big names that have been accumulating Bitcoin at these levels, it could be quite high to push the price lower than that for longer than maybe a day or two, right? He says, ultimately, this is a delayering mechanism for society. It's a ledger defined by math. And when you think about the history of money, a ledger defined by math that has a scarcity to it with no politician or policymaker which can disrupt it or corrupt it or add to the supply or take away from the supply, I think it's a fascinating thing. I think it will have a big position in the global economy over the next decade. But this is probably some of the biggest news right now, my friends, that is being overshadowed by some of the bearish news that we're hearing out there today. And that's that U.S. Virginia Senate has unanimously, my friends, passed a historic crypto banking bill. So, earlier this week, the Virginia Senate overwhelmingly approved a landmark cryptocurrency banking bill, which had previously cleared the state's House of Delegates. Now, the legislators anticipate that Republican Governor Glenn Youngkin will sign the bill within 7 days when it comes to his desk. According to Delegate Chris Head, he says, by codifying the ability for state-chartered banks to become custodians of cryptocurrency, this will make Virginia the first in the country to provide this ability to bank through legislation. Functionally, the bill allows state-chartered banks of Virginia to hold the keys to one of cryptocurrency's wallets or your wallet, similar to how individuals use safety deposit boxes at banks. Ultimately, this will put Virginia at a significant advantage regionally and nationwide. Now, this is one of those stories where it is in fact bullish. However, I don't suggest that it's a great idea to let banks hold your keys, because if banks hold your keys, then they can essentially just do what happened in China, where people's accounts were being frozen, or happen over in Russia, right? Where they can also get involved, control what people do. They can stop people from taking money out of ATMs. Well, in this case, this would also give them control over your Bitcoin. So in that sense, no, this is not necessarily the greatest of news, but it is a milestone because it is the first time that this has ever been allowed, or potentially will be allowed in the US. And I know for a lot of people who watch this channel, not your keys, not your coins. That is in fact our motto. However, there are a lot of people that are very lazy. They don't want to own their keys. They do want exposure. So this could actually allow those to get exposure to Bitcoin without the fear of having to have their own keys. And who knows, maybe after getting involved, having some crypto in the bank, then maybe they will start putting Bitcoin, on a ledger or something like that. So I do think it's a step in the right direction. But he goes on to say, as a small business owner, I'm always looking for the potential in policies to create opportunities for jobs, business development, and economic success. Cryptocurrency has the potential to do just that. The bill was overwhelmingly approved by the House of Delegates on February 2nd, and the state Senate cleared it on Thursday, March 3rd by a vote of 39-0. In the unlikely occurrence that Youngkin vetoes the measure, the legislature may be able to overturn his position. So I do think that even though it's not great saying, you should give your crypto private keys to a bank. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is there are still a lot of people that are on the fence about it. They're not comfortable with the notion of owning their own keys. And this could sort of be the gateway, right? The gateway drug, the entry into the crypto space. They buy over here, they hold a little bit of custody in their bank, they get used to the idea, they start to see the volatility, and then maybe as they start to educate themselves, then they move into a personal wallet where then they do control their own assets for Bitcoin. Now, something that I do want to mention, and this was like the slight warning to Ethereum holders, if you are using MetaMask, you may have seen that there was something that happened. So they say, in response to concerns, what we've been hearing, we want everyone to know that we corrected the problem. So what essentially happened was they had prevented people from using MetaMask in Venezuela, right? And people got freaked out, like, wait a minute, so they can control what you do on MetaMask? Yes, they can, guys. So if you are using MetaMask, understand that even though you do own your own private keys in the sense that you can save them, you can transfer those. Like, you can get a ledger, you can go over on mycrypto.com and enter the private keys. Just understand that if you're using the actual MetaMask itself, that has centralized components to it. So, you know, that is something to be concerned about. So obviously the best way to do it is to just go over, you know, get your keys personally and use a ledger or something like that. But one alternative that I do want to mention that I have mentioned on this channel is the XDeFi wallet. Now, I'm not saying that it's maybe different through centralization, but I know that we haven't seen anything happen with these guys just yet. They also do offer NFTs, and they also have a token. If you guys are interested, it is sitting at around a $40 million market cap. Not saying that you need to go run over and invest in XDeFi. You don't even need to use the token. You could just use the wallet. But I do think if these situations escalate and we do see more problems and things like MetaMask, I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of people hopping over to XDeFi. So just kind of trying to drop a little bit of that alpha there for you guys. You know, do what you want. Don't just buy the token. But I actually do suggest, though, that you download the XDeFi wallet. At least give it a shot. I've been using it recently, and the experience is really, really nice. It has a really nice interface. So, you know, not sponsored by these guys or anything like that. It's just something that I've looked into and I have been using recently. So check that out if you guys are interested. But finally, I do want to end on this bit of news, talking a little bit about the Metaverse, because, you know, Metaverse, is that still a thing even? People kind of forgot about it, right? Well, it looks like CVS is looking into the Metaverse with 4 NFT-related trademarks. It says the drugstore chain plans to offer virtual prescription drugs. I assume they still physically deliver them. I don't know how taking a virtual drug would work. Wellness products and other merchandise authenticated by NFTs. According to a series of February 28 trademark filings, which was made public, the filing, which was submitted under the entertainment and amusement category, also mentions non-fungible tokens as well as crypto collectibles. So ultimately, guys, I wouldn't be getting bearish on the space or bearish on Bitcoin. If anything, it's more than likely an amazing opportunity to accumulate at these levels based on the charts we've been looking at, you know, and once these situations do sort of come to fruition or come to conclusion, more or less, I should say, you know, ultimately, I mean, look what happened with the COVID crash, right? Completely not only recovered it, but had a massive rally. I believe we could be seeing something very similar with what is happening with this war right now. You know, obviously, unless, of course, you know, it escalates to just a crazy point or something like that. But, you know, having a look at this chart right here, which is totally just a mess. You guys love that I make absolute messes out of these charts. Basically, what you guys could see right here is as long as we continue to put in these higher highs and higher lows right here, essentially, there's really nothing to be getting bearish about for Bitcoin right now. So guys, that is essentially it for me. You know, Bitcoin, like I said, we could come down here, still $37,500. It is in the cards. It would still be putting us in this upslope right here. So that's it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for coming back to the channel. Hope you're having an awesome day. Let me know, though, in the comments below, how do you feel? Are you feeling bearish on Bitcoin? Are you concerned that we are seeing gold, you know, having this spike right now? Granted, it is only up 16% since March of 2021, just to kind of point that out. I mean, Bitcoin literally does that in a day, but you know, hey, maybe I just, you know, I'm a Bitcoiner and maybe I'm just biased and I'm not seeing the reality in front of us. But ultimately, guys, Bitcoin is a very, very young asset. Gold is over 5,000 years old. Bitcoin is only 13 years old. Every single day, we're having more and more bullish news coming out for Bitcoin, and it's only a matter of time until Bitcoin becomes the risk-off asset that we all know it's destined to become. And I do still believe that in our lifetime, we will see a $1 million Bitcoin. So risk versus reward, you got to answer that for yourself. For me, I think the writing's on the wall here, but that's it for me. Thank you for coming back to the channel. Hope you're having a wonderful day today. We're back in the studio. We're going to be making videos every single day for the foreseeable future. And if anything else happens, well, obviously I'll let you guys know. Make sure that you get subscribed to the channel. Hit the like if you did appreciate this content. Turn on the bell notification so you can get these updates. Check out the free Telegram group. And of course, if you are looking to trade, make sure you follow the channel. I go over every single day what I'm looking at on the charts. And also make sure you follow the tutorials popping up right here, right now, so you can trade responsibly and profitably. So that's it from me, guys. Thank you so much. My name's K-Dub. This is CryptoZombie. Until next time, stay crypto. And of course, peace out.